This is Jack Rice for Air America Radio. I'm here at Camp X-Ray, but where I am right now is in the interrogation rooms. I want to take you inside to have you better understand what was going on. You have to remember, this is between January and April of 2002. But what we have also seen at this time was not just the term of non-compliance. That's the phrase that I keep hearing for those detainees who are here, but something else. We saw incredibly aggressive interrogation techniques that were being carried out by not just the U.S. military, but by the intelligence community. My former employer, the Central Intelligence Agency, they were highly involved in this at this point. It started to split apart later, but early on, they were driving these issues. Let me take you inside. Come with me as we move inside one of the interrogation rooms. It's basically set up like it was before. As we move inside, what you're going to note is you're going to see at least this table here. It gets a little bit darker, but stay with me. It's all plywood. It's all plywood. What you also see is these lights that they have on. Now, do I know if they had more lights on? Typically what we saw early on in the interrogation process was incredible amounts of light, incredible amounts of sound, and this was going on for sometimes 20, 22 hours a day. That's according to a lot of the information that I have seen from people on the intelligence side, as well as people who are going through the interrogations. What we also note here is that everything is tied down. If you note, is that the tables themselves are nailed to the floor. If you also note, what you're going to see is that there is one bench, not more than one bench. There's not room for other people who can move around, but there is one person who may be in this spot. If we also note, and this is something that I think is significant, notice the 2x4 that rolls across this way. This also allows for more security, because what you're going to do is if you're going to chain somebody to the ground, if you're going to chain somebody down, you do it on this 2x4, because this way they can't have the mobility that others might have. Now you're also going to note you have a seat here, you have a seat here, and you have a row of benches across here. The whole concept of doing an interrogation in the first place is essentially the ability of making the person who's being interrogated feel overwhelmed. You want them to feel small. You want them to feel insignificant. You want them to feel that they can be overwhelmed by everything around them. Sometimes it's the ability to use one person, and you use fear, and that was legitimate. That was something that they tried to do. But what we've also seen is they will use large numbers of people. If there's one person by himself, and you have 5, 6, 7, 8, 10 people shoved in a room around them, there's a perception sometimes, and it's a very real one as well, that you will be overwhelmed. That was also something that was done. Now, I haven't even talked about the questions of abuse that were done here. Those are the questions that are left to another day. But this was actually one of those rooms where things were taking place. Not far from me, we have Camp X-Ray where these people were housed. Frequently, at least early on, these people were rolled over here on gurneys. They were literally strapped down on the gurneys. You can see paths that have razor wire, rolled razor wire, that actually allow them to come straight over to this direction. They come down a path outside of these buildings. There's 4 of them. I don't know how many that were used for interrogations. There's several interrogation rooms side by side. This is part of what it is that we see right here. If I can take you next door, and this is significant as well, if you move into the next room, one of the things that you never know, and this is something that happened to the likes of Mozambique, as an example, was that what he would see is just what happens in his interrogation room. But what he doesn't necessarily have to see, but what may hear, is something that is done in this room. So if you're going to hear a scream in this room, you're going to hear it over here, because notice what you get. All you have are small, thin plywood walls. The concept is to allow for sound to move from one place to another. So that's part of the interrogation process that the military certainly used, and the Central Intelligence Agency absolutely used. That is part of this entire process. It changed after this. The aggressiveness used in interrogations continued, certainly at camps 1 through 4, because we have everything that says so. There was a huge fight that took place between the DOD and the Central Intelligence Agency. So we know that that's also true. But it started right here. When it came to U.S. soil from places like Bagram and elsewhere, they started right here in this base and moved onward. This is Jack Rice coming to you from Camp X-Ray, Guantanamo Bay, Cuba, for Air America Radio.